All right, thanks for tuning in. And now even going to our new channel, and you get to see us on To Be Fair, a podcast hosted by Ehryn Jordan Peterson, and that is me. Joining me, of course, is my lovely co-host Lisa Forrestal. How you doing?
Hey, hi, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh,
I'm excited about this new adventure.
it is. It's like new because almost a year ago we started just recording audio late at night while I was eating wings in the dark, and we talked about the 90s for an hour or so. Um, and of course, also joining is my lovely, lovely friend Marie Sippola. I'm so glad that she got married and uses that name because her other last name was so hard to say. How you doing, Marie?
I'm good. Yeah. This is cool. It's a lot different than last year. Like I remember recording with you guys with wine in my hand, and now I'm pregnant, so
So there's no
that's not
wine.
happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
Lisa, did you not know that?
congratulations.
Thank you.
No,
Oh,
congratulations.
Thank you.
yes, she I'm I was really happy to hear about that with Marie. I got to be I'm mostly because I feel like I was kind of part of the journey of her learning about her pregnancy. And then I was like, we were doing a Christmas show while, you're still, and this is new and it's scary. It's already, we're in a scary world. We were working on a Christmas holiday show this past winter, and we had to put the bag on it because it scared us in so many directions. And one particularly for me, and I'm sure for you, was the fact that you were pregnant, and
Yeah.
it's already dangerous enough you being in the cesspit petri dish that is your high school.
Right.
um,
Right.
but we didn't need to add any more barriers of people. And so, and
Yeah.
it felt like we were trying to rush a holiday show too quickly. And we'll get into that as we go, but I kind of wanted to start this episode, this first episode of the season, this first episode where they get to see us talk to each other on Zoom, as is the new normal of communication in the world. I wanted to just take a nice trip down memory lane of the wonderful year that was 2020. And what I say is wonderful is it was full of wonder. It was quite full of wonder.
True.
I wonder what's going to
Yes,
happen next is kind
yes.
of the theme. Uh,
Well played.
and it didn't.
Yeah.
Thank you. Every now and then I have a creative thought here. um, so we okay, so 2020 started really, really dramatically for me, as would happen with a drama queen. But in this way, it was I was in a really dark place at the beginning of 2020. Marie, I believe you remember, like we were rehearsing a lot of improv, and I was disconnected from the world. I was disconnected from my people. I didn't, and I was trying to, I would participate in life. I would do things like improv, work, everything. But it was like I was just kind of there, like I'm okay, life was happening and I was like not sure what was happening. And I would go home most nights and I would just cry for hours. I mean, I was literally an emotional wreck, and I didn't even know what I was crying about. Sometimes I didn't know what was going through, and it just kind of escalated for like 2 months for me. Um, so it was very fascinating when I was starting to feel a little bit better, that all of a sudden the world had taken this little flu bug that I was hearing about, like COVID-19, a coronavirus. Oh, okay, that's the new bug of the year. There's always something new, and we're afraid of it. You know what I mean? Like we all
Hmm.
like, yeah, we're trying to not catch it because we don't want to miss time at work. We don't want to feel that sickness. Or in some cases, uh, there are dangerous bugs out there that are dangerous to certain people. As we know, this one is for sure dangerous to everyone, but sometimes some people are a little bit more immunocompromised. But um so that's how I lived it. I was like, but all of a sudden then I'm hearing schools are going to distance learning, and this is like beginning of March. I was like, what? What? Okay, that's weird. Okay. All right. That's an interesting way to handle this. sickness. Okay, we want to be careful. Like, yep, I get it. And then it suddenly, I was like making little jokes to my boss, and at this time I was a manager at a restaurant, and I was making jokes to him. I was like, you know what? If schools are closing and this thing is getting as scary as it is, we're next. We are next. And sure enough, we find out that as of St. Patrick's Day, I had so many plans for a big St. Patrick's Day party there. I was so excited. Ugh. Anyway, I digress. So it was suddenly we're closing down and I'm filing for unemployment, and okay. So that's where we are now. We are at the point of schools have now gone and lockdown is going into effect in a quarantine. All right. But prior to this, in February, when I was really starting to get out of my little moo, I started this podcast, to be fair. I just randomly was talking. I'm like, and here's like, I found this app, Anchor, and it was basically teaching me how to make a podcast as I made a podcast. And I found myself really dry on the first episode, trying to just talk. I was like, I don't know how to guide myself. I don't. And so I just happened to message Lisa, and I was like, hey, how would you like, I mean, I can try doing this recording together thing. Would you like to try? And she's like, sure, let's do it. And boom. All right. So then we're here now. That is where we are. So
Yeah.
Marie, I don't know if we talked a little bit before about how you went into being as a teacher, as an educator, and schools closing at the beginning. How were you feeling at the beginning of all this, when we were first learning about COVID?
It's interesting because in January and February, kids were really sick. I remember it was like the worst year for the flu. Like everybody got it. I always get a flu shot as a teacher. So like for me, I was like, well, this is just that time of year. But I remember one day, I called the nurse because one of my students was feeling really sick. And I'm like, I'm sending him to you. And then she takes their temperature and she was like, Marie, this is like the 7th kid I've sent home. And it wasn't even noon yet.
Wow.
So like, and I work at a K through 12 school, but like, and it was really hitting elementary. And I'm not saying that was the virus at all. I just remember a lot of people sick, like starting January. And then with the virus, I remember like driving to work and listening to NPR and hearing about Italy, right? And like what was going on in Italy and thinking like, that's not going to happen to us. And then I remember reading like online, like Italy basically warning us, like, if the US doesn't take this seriously, here's what's going to happen. And then I remember being like nervous about that, but it really didn't hit until the schools were shut down. And then it was like, oh, this is a huge deal. But I worked with people that were like, are we going to do this every time somebody gets the flu? I mean, I heard that right away.
Yeah.
Like,
that conversation started happening right away. Like people, you could already tell the pessimists of the whole situation, and the ones that were just like, oh, this is just annoying. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to disregard how they felt, because I understand that. I feel that too. It is kind of, ugh.
Well, yeah. But I remember thinking, okay, it may not have hit us in America yet, but like the whole world is suffering right now. And like at that time, Italy was really suffering. And I'm like, you don't have empathy for them and you don't think that could happen to us, or, and it was just, so from the very beginning, it was like a disregard of like, this could happen to us. And then lack of preparation, big time. Because I also remember, at work when we had like, I think the governor gave us like 8 days, 8 full school days to like pack up everything and figure out how the kids could come and get their stuff, because they
Yeah.
still had all their stuff in their lockers,
Well,
you know, like,
I remember that situation with the schools, and especially your school, because I was living with a family where they had a senior from that high school.
yeah,
And I remember, like, all of a sudden I was asking him one day, after, like, a couple days into it, I'm like, "Oh, is your schoolwork?" He's like, "Oh, they haven't gotten it ready yet."
right.
Like, he had to go
Yeah,
like a
and
whole
then
week of just like vacation.
well, and I remember as a teacher being like, I just remember feeling we were spinning our wheels with no direction, no, just like we didn't know what we were doing. And there was a part of me that was like, this isn't the issue right now. Like, we need to tackle what's coming to our country
Yeah.
and like prepare for that versus like how, you know, like if the schools are shutting down, I don't know, it was definitely a weird time, because I was thinking I might not, like, I didn't know if I would have students' parents die or my parents die, you know, like or me and my husband. Like, I was at this point that was like, why are we concerned right now about education when people are dying?
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I kind of struggled, because I'm like, we're spinning our wheels. And I remember thinking there's 3 months left of school, and like, these kids are already going to be traumatized and the teachers are traumatized. Why are we pushing to make things normal when they're not?
Yeah. And that was, I think that's what kind of, I got to watch that perspective of a student that was trying to finish out his senior year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he was already struggling with his schoolwork as it was. And then you distance him from the educators that are holding him accountable.
Yep.
And I was like, how are these kids going to do it? And I've seen it even worse this year with a middle schooler. And it's
Well,
just,
and so much of it, what frustrated me was nobody was talking about their mental health. Nobody was talking about how do we address the bigger issue here. Everybody was like, how are we going to make sure that they still get their homework and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's not, for me as an educator, and I teach special ed, I was like, the big picture of this, are the kids okay? Is their family okay? Does their family have what they need? Food, shelter, whatever, like the basics. Like, it kind of came down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I was like, education at this point, like, we have to make sure that these kids are okay in these other places too,
yeah.
you know?
Well, I mean, exactly, because you've got kids in your community that you teach in. There are kids that are below a poverty line that they don't get Wi-Fi.
Right.
They do not. Um, so they rely on the schools for those.
And for food and
Yeah, sometimes
all
their
of
meals
it.
are planned out for parents that are on strict tight budgets. Their meals are planned out based on a school lunch schedule, because some parents, they don't get to qualify for that assistance, that they have to pay that monthly thing for their students to be able to eat at school. And so that's already factored into a really tight budget, and I can respect that. And so this threw a lot of people into such a crazy world. I, for some reason, did not was for some reason I felt more empowered once the quarantine began. I just did. I just felt stronger to be
You had
like,
the opportunity to actually go out. You were doing so much in the community though. When it got, when it first kind of kicked up.
yeah. Well, I mean, I
Um,
wasn't working, so I mean, but I was on unemployment, but I'm not good at sitting around, and I know I need to go out
mhm.
and do things, but I know I shouldn't be going out and doing things. So I found a way to make that work for me, whereas like there are other people that cannot be doing things and need things being done for them. So like a lot of senior friends of my family, I would be running errands for, you know, and it made me feel better because then I was really good at being able to get into a store, go get what I need and get out. not stopping and talking, even though that is one of my biggest downfalls, is going into Target, stopping in a cluster and having a good conversation with 20 other people being like, yeah, it's like, listen to all the stories I have to tell. But that's what I do. I enjoy that. It's
I
an
know.
audience of people that love to talk to me, and I love to talk to, and they love to listen.
Well, it's interesting though too, because you were making a difference and you felt like you were making a difference. And my situation was almost like the opposite. Here I was before this, I felt like I was making a difference in kids' lives. And then boom, all of a sudden, all these things that I didn't have control over, like I at least had control over my classroom environment. I could make sure that the kids were respectful to each other in there. I could make sure that they were well fed, like all that stuff. But when this hit and I still had to meet with them and hear the chaos in their house and hear all those stories, and as you know, like abuse went up and all those things, that it was like I didn't have any control over that. So for me, I felt like completely stripped of like my ability to help people almost, because I couldn't.
I know.
And then all my students were failing too. And I'm like, and there was nothing I could really do.
In my experience, as someone who did benefit from a special education teacher in school, one thing that benefited me the most was that one-on-one time with those teachers, and how important it was to be present with, because I didn't grasp or understand concept in the same way that my peers did. Especially when it came to math. I mean, math was like, you might as well have been trying to teach me a foreign language.
Yeah.
Because it was not comprehending. There was nothing going in and sinking in except for basic addition, geometry, and some fractions. Like those made sense to me. And then once you're adding the alphabet into math, I'm like, why?
Well, and it's really nice to hear it from your perspective, Marie, because when it happened, the teachers at Hermantown and in Cloquet, they would drop off giant folders of weekly homework, of paper homework. And it's like, both my kids are in special education, and my daughter has suffered so much because of the social aspect, because she thrives to see her friends. She needs that social ability because she just loves people. And so this is, like you were talking about the mental health, it just, it completely just destroyed it, honestly. It's been a hard road to build her back up to where she's feeling good again. And then what teenagers can you get to actually sit down and just do their homework? That's not a reasonable request in the best of circumstances.
Right. Yeah,
So,
my main priority in the spring was just connecting with the kids, being able to talk to them on the phone or meeting virtually with them, just so I could see them and know they were okay. And honestly, I mean, there was a little bit of academics here and there, but a lot of it was just like, how are you? Like, you know.
Yeah. Not many people were asking the kids a lot how they were doing. No, I really do notice that. And that was one of the why I think teachers, being probably one of the most important essential worker next to medical people, is you were so important in a lot of teenagers' lives.
We had students too, unfortunately, their mental health services kind of went out the window during the pandemic as well. So they weren't getting that either from like actual therapists, which was like, oh my God.
Telehealth. Yeah, most therapists were going telehealth, and then that was making their schedule that much trickier. So weird seeing my therapist.
Well, I started therapy actually in April because of it all.
Of course.
Because I was like, it was just so hard to deal with it. It just as an adult and a teacher.
So fast forward, of course, we know what's going on with our lives in this quarantine, and come June, end of May, early June, what's the next? Well, okay, let's at least touch on the murder hornets, okay? I mean, I don't think we give enough.
Really?
I don't think we
What
give enough.
happened to those?
I
Like,
know.
seriously.
I don't think we give enough reflection to the murder hornets.
Well, and aren't they just hornets that kill bees? Isn't that
I just remember
they
that
are?
being a factor that came out. I don't think
Yeah.
there was much of a problem in our region, but
I was
No.
gonna say, I don't think that they hit Minnesota.
no.
I don't know though.
But it was, I remember that being on the news. And this being the fact that I don't think I'd ever paid attention to the news more than I did in 2020.
Yep.
Honestly,
Same.
and actually tried to look on actual
Agreed.
truth, like the actual facts of things, and not just basing what I'm hearing on social media. Like, of
Agreed.
course, I would take what I got from social media. I'm like, I should look into that. You know,
Right.
like that's what I was taking it as. Like, okay, you're giving me
Mhm.
information that I want to research. Like, instead of just
Yeah.
saying, oh, you're giving me information and that is fact, boom, right under my feed. Like, especially already we're getting there. And that's when it really, I was proud of myself for being that type of person, because once we got to Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, that situation changed my life forever. And it changed our whole, I think, many lives forever that day, though that whole situation. One, for me, it was, this is my home state. This is happening in my home state. I literally saw many different videos of this actually happening. Like the stuff
Right.
you only hear about, and I believed happened. Like, I believed it did. When people told me about police brutality against people of color, of course I believed it. And I thought how wrong it was. But to actually see it happen, and to see the world cry out about it, and finally get the opportunity, and why it had to get to that point for us to have the conversation, and for it to erupt into such a big display of historical proportions, you know, that this is real life. We used to hear about these stories, like about, back with Martin Luther King and of segregation. We used to hear about this, and that was our history. And we were thinking that we were growing up in this world that had healed from that and had learned from that. And it was to that day that I was realizing we have not changed.
Not as much as we'd like to think we have. I mean,
Eh,
it's, a lot of the same situation, just in a different medium.
yes.
It's much more, I feel like it's much more put under the rug, so to
I think
speak.
oh, sorry, Lisa, you keep going.
Oh, no, I just said I think that we've grown, kind of speak, to make it like a curtain. There we go. Sorry.
No, yeah.
So like
Pull
put a
the
curtain
wool over
over
the
it,
eyes.
or pull the wool over the eyes. Yeah, like, oh look, we've come so far, and then now with the media capabilities and our phones, like there's no wool anymore.
Well, it's just like a quote from Will Smith during it all, is that it's not that racism's getting worse, it's just getting filmed a lot more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that
yes.
resonated with me. Because, and I suppose I've always known that racism was like a real thing, because I am a member of the LGBT community who also is oppressed by an oppressor, which generally happens to be a very similar oppressor to people of color, and that happens to be cisgendered white men. I mean, that's where most of it comes from. And it this year really started to feel like a pattern when Black Lives Matter happened. And I went down and I filmed in Duluth, of course. I filmed some stuff going on there with some marches. And I did on purpose avoid any dangerous riot stuff. But I felt that I needed to be at one of these protests. I needed to march. I needed to stand up for this, because that's what my family never encouraged me to stand up for what I believed in. My family never, I had to learn that I had to stand up for what I believe in, because I am one of those people that I believe in. I'm one of the type of people that I believe in, and I believe in so much. I believe in so many more things about this world. Like, I honestly even like to believe that some of the monsters of our world are capable of redemption, because otherwise I have to start giving up hope on the human race, and I can't do that yet. I'm not ready to, even with 2020 testing my every resolve. And uh so I'm proud to see, and I'm not going to lie, that I actually was very happy to see the world on fire. I can't deny that I'm not saying that I support violence or any criminal behavior in this case, but it's criminal behavior started to seem very questionable during that, because
Yeah.
we were demanding to see that there was going to be justice served to the murderers of George Floyd, and that was expected, and it was looking like it was going to happen, and what happened was wrong. They're all, as far as I know, if I'm not mistaken, are they not all out now? All of those police officers?
I don't know. And I think that trial's coming up, which,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's going to be a big deal.
yeah,
Because I'm worried that if they're not given their due justice,
yeah,
that someone else is going to ask for it
right.
and not really ask.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're so brink of world war, or civil war right there. um and where is it also? So then you're watching the world just fall apart even more, and and our country divide even more, like those cracks just keep breaking bigger and bigger.
Yep.
um and it's sad to watch, because um you're seeing your friends post very aggressively, like their opinion about Black Lives Matter and why it's right, and you support it, and you're like, yes, yes, the movement of Black Lives Matter is very important. And I was very clear to always make sure that to see it separated from rioters and protesters, and the movement of Black Lives Matter not being labeled this terrorist organization, because some people like to think all lives matter is the conversation that the only conversation we should have. And that's because, yeah, what they want, what these all lives matter people want, is they want, can't we just go back to how we were living, where no one really even talked about it and we just dealt with it and it seemed pretty peaceful? That
Well, the whole thing is that all lives matter. They didn't.
they didn't know, and that's where I was
But
going. Yes, wait, because like they want to just put the wool back over. Like I want to go back into my blind living
but
through
it
this. That
never was all lives matter.
it
It'd
never
be
was.
beautiful if it was, but
Oh
it
no,
never
it never
was.
has been.
It
And
never
that's the
was.
whole point of the movement. And I think with the riots and everything, I agree with you. There was a part of me that was like glad it was happening in a way that it needs to get the attention that it deserved.
Yep,
It's unfortunate that it had to happen that way, but I think it did have to happen that way.
it
Like
did.
for people to, which is sad because you would think that watching the video alone of George Floyd would be enough. But it's not, and it still might not be if this trial, if they don't get convicted. So like that's I mean, that's what's so crazy about it all. And I think, during that time too, it was like a big time for reflection for everybody. For me, it was a lot of like my own privilege. Like I've never felt or dove into my own privilege and the people I surround myself with, their privilege more than this summer. And
Correct.
I also think that the virus, us being inside more, or just like, more having more alone time with ourselves, also bred this whole like of us learning about ourselves and about each other, and um which probably made the divide bigger. But I think social media is to blame for the huge,
It's it's hard
but
to, yeah, it's hard to not agree with that, because though we may know the difference between getting our news from somewhere else, other source than
yeah.
Facebook, there's a lot of people that unfortunately they only get their media stuff from Facebook. And
And if you're only looking at, because I made my students watch it too this year. the Netflix documentary. Now I can't think of what it is.
It's The Social Dilemma, right?
Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
And we had some really good discussions on
I
it.
bet. I have not
But
watched it yet.
Is
It's
that the
so
one
good.
about the algorithms that have to do with social media?
Yeah, and the fact that
Yeah.
like you know what it has done is just made you even more believe even more your view, because you're only seeing other people's opinions that align with yours.
Correct. Everyone's
fed.
yes, the algorithm is
It's
making
so
sure that the
scary.
narrative stays on there. Yes, and I saw a little bit about this in the mockumentary "Death to 2020" on Netflix. Do check that out, Marie. I know you. I thought of you the whole time while I watched it. I did. One is yes, because I think there was a lot of characters you would have had fun playing if you had the opportunity to do a show like that. But one, Lisa Kudrow was in it, and she played this conservative person working for the Trump administration, and she was brilliant on how she did it. And
I have to see it. I'll have to check it out too.
watch it tonight. I watched that, and then I followed up by Amazon came up with their whole thing with they took on some pretty powerhouse female stand-up comedians like Sarah Silverman, Tiffany Haddish, and the woman that plays Mrs. Maisel in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I can't think of her name right now.
Oh yeah, she's good.
Yeah, she's funny. They all
Rachel.
I can't. Her last name is so weird. It's hard to pronounce. She's gonna Google it. But anyway, they did a whole. It's called Yearly Departed, and they went on and just like each of them had a different reason why they were grieving something in from 2020. Like Sarah Silverman's favorite thing to grieve was making America great again.
Of course.
And why can't America why do we have to go for great? Why can't we just be good? What's wrong with going for that? And so anyway, yeah, there's a lot that we learned, but Black Lives Matter and the how it just really festered a lot more anger and white privilege. The conversation of white privilege was very, very big this year, or the year of 2020. And it was I think that was probably the hardest thing for me, was because being one of the people that understands why all lives matter can't matter until Black Lives Matter, and being one of those people that can admit that white privilege is real because I have benefited from it myself. I'm benefiting from it in more ways than people know. And that I wish that more people could understand that when we say it and we talk about it, it's not your freaking fault. We're not saying that you have to be ashamed of this, but they automatically go to the fact they hear the word privileged and they automatically assume that we're categorizing them into like a 1%er privilege. Like we can't get your whatever garbage in your mind that is so messed up that won't let you process what we're trying to explain to you by saying like why all lives matter isn't actually appropriate to say right now, and why white privilege is real is like I just had so many. Well, I've had to work for so much of my stuff that it's been. I'm like, yeah, okay, so have I. I'm like, but
you've been given the opportunity to be able to work for it.
Yeah, I also can walk into a place, and with my white skin tends to get me a little bit more further into the door than of my person of color counterpart that might be right next to me. It's a
who
fact.
could be even more qualified.
Yes.
It's so I'm not laughing because it's funny. No. It sickens me how people can say that white privilege does not exist.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's blind ignorance. I mean, ignorance is bliss, and so many people want to stay there.
Marie, did you have anything to add to
that? Well, yeah, and when I've gotten into conversations with people about it too, it's like nobody's saying that your life hasn't been hard or that you haven't gone through hard things.
Yeah.
But you can't just deny somebody else's way worse hardships. Like,
Yes.
can we just acknowledge that people of color have way worse hardships?
It's true.
It
And
doesn't mean that
yeah,
yours wasn't bad, but let's,
yes.
and it's almost like, just because you have pain doesn't mean other people don't have pain. Like, it's more of this like empathy, like, for other people. Like,
It's it's this fact that
it
some
doesn't
people,
take away from your pain,
yeah. Thank
like,
you. Great way to put that, Marie.
so, but I think people have a really hard time with that. Like, they have walls up for whatever reason. And I
It,
think that's because I think a lot of this kind of racial justice work starts with knowing yourself,
it's
knowing like your own demons, your privilege, your racist tendencies. And if you're not ready to do that, which I think a lot of people aren't, then they're not going to see it.
it's true. It's a hard thing to get people to admit those things, because then it's the first that you have to get to them to understand that everyone is a little bit racist. That
Mm-hmm.
song from Avenue Q
Yeah.
is not just a joke song.
Yeah.
No.
It's made in satirical seriousness, actually. I
Yeah.
mean, as ironic as that is to say it that way, but you listen to that song and it's true. Um it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that we have just been kind of somehow taught and woven into and conditioned to be. And that's what we're trying to break. That's the conversation we're trying to say, is hold yourself accountable to it, because that by you doing that, that's when we can start healing. That's when we can start conversing with, how do we do better? How, what, like, we're like, and you don't have to, it's not about constantly going and apologizing or going and saying, oh, I'm colorblind, I don't see color. It's like, don't even cop out right now. We don't have time for that right now.
Yeah.
You know. um so yeah, so that situation's bubbling, and this is the whole summer is eaten alive by this whole thing. So suddenly it's fall. Oh, also restaurants are back in, all opened throughout Minnesota for sure. And we're dealing with a crisis of the fact that we have um a governor who believes in science. Now
Weird.
I really want to emphasize that I understand where our governor is coming from. Though I do not agree with all of his decisions to be made, I think that some of them were a little like, it sucks because now a bunch of my friends are unemployed. A bunch of my friends are just are getting to go back to work again tomorrow. But it's struggling businesses wise. It's really struggling, and people are really shouting out at our governor and just angry with our governor. And in some ways, I'm like, I get it. I understand their anger towards him, because unfortunately, this guy is in the job to have to make these hard calls.
Oh, I would hate it. I would
He's in
hate
the
I
job.
can't imagine.
He's
no.
in the job to be the fall guy, to make the harsh decision.
Oh,
And I don't like. I posted so many opportunities for conversations on social media to be like, especially when he did this second lockdown. I put out a question on my Facebook page to be like, if you were in this position to have to make this decision, what would you do? And I had some people that were really great about coming in with the conversation to be like, oh, I guess I'd probably do the same thing. Maybe a couple little different things, and they didn't seem bad ideas what they would do. But I okay, I'm like, okay, cool. But then of course there were some people that came in and they just used that as an opportunity to just slam Governor Walz.
yeah, but then, yeah, when you ask them, well, what would you do? They
Yeah,
have no clue. They have
they
no,
don't. So when
like,
I would redirect them again to be like,
yeah,
okay, I'm like, I see you're frustrated here, but what would you do?
yeah,
I'm like, I want you to answer the question. And I'm like, it's not a right or wrong answer thing here. Like, it's
right,
not about slamming what is being done. It's about, what would you do? Because I don't know if anyone's going to make the right decision in this situation.
right, yeah,
And
Yeah, that's a burden that I would not
And the reason I have kept my respect for Governor Walz is he is doing what he believes is right for our state and its security in this situation. And he is sacrificing his political capital and his potential to be reelected if he so desires. And I think he knows that.
Yeah.
But he's doing this with his conscience. And even if I disagree with some of his choices, I totally support with that. He is in such a burden of a position to have to be in. And I think that unfortunately he's making some decisions that are hurting other people, and I hate it so much. But I will not be one of the people slinging mud at him. I just won't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll vote for him again if there's a different candidate that comes in. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I think if he runs again, based on the fact that what he was willing to sacrifice and what calls he's willing to make when he makes the hard calls, that's enough for me in some ways to be like, I'll vote for him again. But we shall see. So I just want to bring that up because then we have to talk about the anti-maskers. Now, because the division is now there where I wear a mask. I hate wearing masks. I hate them so much. I don't want to wear a mask ever. I hate it. I found two benefits to wearing masks is the fact that I can add that to a new fashion accessory and match it to whatever or not match it, whatever. And I can find really fun ways to make the mask work for me. And then I don't always have to wear my dentures. I've learned to be more confident without my dentures and still being able to talk without my dentures because I realized the only reason that I really wanted dentures after I had to lose my upper teeth was for my own vanity. It was literally, it took me getting those dentures to finally have the confidence to do what I'm doing now and being on stage, doing all the performance. I mean, Marie, I think you'd only known me for like a couple weeks before I had my surgery, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of the time you've known me, I've worn dentures. And so I've been more confident even now to not wear them, even on camera. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, if other people need me to wear dentures for them to be able to look at me, then just, you know what, scroll by. I ain't got no
Good for
time.
you, though.
Thank you. That's
Good for
why I'm also.
you. That's huge.
You see my TikToks, most of my lip syncing. I do some really interesting TikToks with some good stuff. Oh my God, Marie, I am a TikTok junkie.
Yes,
I know. I can't bring myself to get on TikTok.
I have to say
funny, I feel like I said the same thing for a really, really long time.
I broke her.
All of 2020.
I broke her.
Almost all of 2020.
I broke her.
Really?
I broke her.
Yeah.
Now, Lisa?
I'm on it and I make them and I love it. It makes me happy to feel like I'm doing something that might make someone else laugh.
And Marie, one thing about TikTok that I have to say is that the TikTok that me and Lisa are a part of is a really positive, uplifting, and validating and empowering type of place where like you can do the goofiest things and you see people come in and comment and they just like have chuckles and giggles and you're putting just like a few moments of joy, like even just a few seconds of joy in someone's like, oh, that was funny, yay. And I want to be part of that. And so that's why I do what I do. And I don't create anything majorly original, but I do like to watch my followers go up because right before Christmas, I think I was barely at 500. I had like my goal was to get to 500 by Christmas. And now it is January 10th. And I have over 2,600 followers on TikTok.
Wow.
I didn't know that about TikTok, that like there's different like the one that you're a part of is like really positive. I just thought it was one thing.
The algorithm for TikTok has associated me to gay TikTok, which is a fantastic world to be in.
Me too. It's the best.
Yeah, you've gotten tagged. I mean, because you get like drag queens that do some fun things and they just are amazing.
So talented.
You get some gay guys who are just the best dancers ever. You get lesbians who are just so funny.
Hot.
And they just, and we make gay jokes and stuff, and it's really funny. And then there's of course the thirst traps on gay TikTok that are dangerous. I
don't know if you can see me pointing at Ehryn, but I'm pointing at Ehryn.
Well, on my screen, I'm above you.
Yeah,
Oh, all right.
same with mine. Yeah,
Good. There you go. So,
That's funny.
so anyway, I
would
There's a
you
lot
say?
of like body positivity on there. There's a lot of,
yeah,
a lot of
I
stuff
don't.
about positive mental health. There's
I
Cool.
spent.
it's
I spent.
I'm very surprised
Yeah, I spent
Is
a
at
good
it more
2 years.
my
positive than like Instagram? Because Instagram
yeah.
can be,
Instagram can be toxic.
yeah.
TikTok, I have found some toxic videos, but I'm expecting it. But for the most part, I have found about 90% of TikTok has been a positive experience for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I laugh, I cry.
I
Oh,
do.
the
Some
sad
people
ones.
share.
I
I,
cry.
I mean, some people share some pretty emotional stuff, and it's really nice to see these people. They're sharing, they're having the conversation about mental health, and
Yeah.
that's what I love
Yep.
about it. And then some people are making jokes about their mental illness stuff, and
Which is what gets some of us by.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a textbook, like, the worse I am, the funnier I am. Well, at least I think I'm funny. But you know, I shove it all off on humor.
I
So
try.
that's another reason TikTok's probably going to be good for me.
I try on TikTok to only do my funny stuff. But because most of the time on the podcast and Facebook and my lives and YouTube stuff I'm gonna do is probably be a little bit more on the honesty side of my mental health and my journey. Like here we talk about a lot more dramatic stuff sometimes and
Oh,
traumatizing stuff
right.
for me. And I really don't. I really hate talking about all this negative stuff that's like we're talking about. I really don't want that to be such a focal point in, but it was important as we developed this podcast, especially. I mean, I think what really got us really moving with the podcast was day one of when we called the Panic Diaries. I think you
Yes.
probably joined us for a couple of those. I think,
Oh yeah.
but I mean, I full on, I think 14 to 15 days straight, we recorded an episode. Like
Mhm.
I was on
Yeah.
all 14, obviously. And for me, it's just natural. Like I know I've been always this person that's just like, hey, 6 hours before we record, hey, you want to record tonight? Like most now at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone's like, yeah, I got nothing else to do but drink this wine here.
Right.
And so if I'm gonna, I might as well. I could talk to you on the phone, or we could record it for a podcast. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not gonna say I have a lot of listeners to this podcast, but I mean, there's a few out there. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're all very interesting, eclectic group of people, but they clearly are entertained by whatever I'm doing.
Right. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so then we get to the fall and school's back in session, and most of the people are trying to distance learn. And then I'm talking to my friend Marie Sippola, who's like, oh no, we're not doing that.
No.
We're not.
Right? Like, I need to come live wherever you are until my kids graduate.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's a small school. It's K through 12, and the town is very small. Like I think population's like 600 something.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that majority of the people that live in this town got the virus in the summer. They just like spread it to each other like an STD, then it was gone. Like that's what I kind of we would joke about, because there's 2 bars in the town and everybody goes there, and a lot of people did have the virus in the summer, so I'm told. But when we started school, it was like, well, we'll see how long this lasts. Like everybody was masked, thankfully. Like that's what I was so happy about, is that our governor said you have to be masked, because that would have split our school in half. If you're talking about anti-maskers, if you're
I
talking
didn't want
about
to give.
Trump,
Yeah,
my
I didn't want to give
school would have split
anti-maskers.
in half.
I didn't want to give asking anti-maskers too much time on this podcast because it's a
Yeah,
big trigger for me. But yeah,
but it is. It's like, and I'm talking adults.
yes,
Well, and families too. I mean, so it was complete. It would have been completely split in half. So there would have been no resolution. So I'm so glad that the governor was like, nope, you have to mask, because I know for a fact that would have been a fight. It would have been a fight with students.
Yep.
And I was really proud of the students. The first week, there were a couple that were like trying to take off their mask, not in my room, but I heard like in the school. And right away, our admin was just on it, like, nope, well, if you take your mask off, then you need to distance learn at home, you know? And the parents didn't want that. So everybody's masked. And we have, to this date, only had 7 positive cases.
Well, there we go. That seems good.
And it hasn't spread in the school. And thankfully, they've been separated. So like we haven't had multiple cases in a week. It'll be like 1 week is one kid, they're quarantined.
Yeah.
And when they come back, maybe a week later, another kid has it. And they're getting it from the community or whatever they're doing outside of the community.
Yeah.
But that's how we've been able to stay open. Like, honestly, it's also a small school. So like the classroom sizes, the biggest classroom size is like 15 kids in a room.
Wow.
Whereas some of the schools in the cities, you know, there's like 40 kids cramped in a room, you know? And so even the hallway congestion or lunchtime isn't like, you can spread out. So I think that's the only reason why we've been able to stay open.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we haven't closed at all.
That's awesome.
Because I always found that very interesting, because it was interesting. So
because it was interesting. Yeah, well, it is, because I mean, like, okay, with Houston school, he goes to a school in Cloquet, and they're doing hybrid learning, and so he goes to school Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he's home with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, they finally decided, for whatever reason, that starting on the 19th, they're going to go back to full time.
Yep.
He's got a very small school. Again, it's, you know, and then Savannah, Hermantown is starting to do hybrid again. So she's going to get to go to school Wednesdays and Fridays. So I feel like we're slowly getting there. I'm really grateful for the computer distance learning, because paper distance learning would have killed me this year. I can't imagine as a teacher having to prepare a week's worth of assignments for all your students, make sure they all get it, then find a way to get it back to the school or get it back to the teachers. That has been so chaotic. I give you guys, you teach the teachers utmost respect, and just, I can't even imagine. I don't know if I could do it, to be honest, you know.
I will say that the toughest thing about this year, while it's been really nice to be in person for majority of the students, they need that because they don't have reliable Wi-Fi. And we know from last spring that did not work. Also, these kids' parents, like, you know, because there's some parents who have had to quit their jobs so that they could help their kids at home with their schooling. I can't imagine what that would do to this small town community, but also like those parents can't afford not to work. Right. So there's part of that, but as a teacher, it's been really difficult because I have had to do both. So because we've been open and because kids have had to quarantine, I have had to do at the same time in-person and distance learning, and it's a nightmare.
I can't.
Yeah, I'm only one person, you know.
Right. Yep.
But you know, that's not going to be forever, and that's you know, and it ebbs and flows. Like right now, that I have 2 kids that are distance learning, but after Thanksgiving, I had like 5 or 6.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but that's because there was like a little outbreak, you know.
Sure. Yep.
So yeah, we it was interesting. So we got to the election, and it was, you know, everyone did their voting either by mail. I think most people that I know voted by mail. I ended up going to the courthouse early to vote.
That's what we did too.
I was planning to vote early and just by mail, but I forgot to get it in time. I just did. So I just brought the ballot in to the courthouse. But what really kind of sucked was like I felt like it was just as bad because there were so many people there the day I went. And so I was like,
really? Because I was going to say when my husband and I went, it wasn't bad.
For me, I was too close to election day, I think maybe because I was see if election day was the Tuesday, I was there like on a Wednesday or Thursday prior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right before Halloween. Yeah, that's what. So I actually think I went on Halloween. Yeah. But no, Halloween was a weekend.
Yeah, Halloween was on a Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah. So no, Halloween was on a Friday. Yeah, I went Friday on Halloween. 31st, 1st, 2nd, because if November 4th was election day, and that was Tuesday.
I think Halloween was a Saturday because it was
Maybe it was. I don't know. Either way, I think I was in a costume of sorts.
Aren't you always, darling?
Yes, I'm always in costume. Yes. You never know.
Always in character.
So let's talk a little bit about some positive things while we wrap up the episode. Some positive things that came out of 2020 for you. Like Marie, anything, I mean, besides the obvious?
Yes, I'm pregnant. That's very positive. No, I don't know. Come back to me. I gotta think about that. Like seriously. Lisa. I've been a Debbie Downer about 2020.
I have too. Some positives to come out of 2020 was our podcast. Mm-hmm. It really, honestly, it gave me kind of a sense of purpose because I was really having the highs and lows, like the real severe highs and lows. And so having something to be accountable, I had to hold myself accountable to actually, participate. That was really big for me. So thank you. I appreciate it very much. This adventure has been amazing. I love it.
Don't think I could have done it without you.
Yeah, you guys are great together.
I am the best sidekick. I told him I can't be the front man. I'm a sidekick.
Yeah. No, you guys
I know that.
Because like I mean, at the beginning last spring, when we would just do it on the phone, and you and I, Lisa, we've never met.
Right.
But instantly I felt comfortable with you. Like, and Ehryn, you do a really good job of just opening up the conversation too. Thank you. And you guys work really well off of each other. So
thank you so much. That actually means so much.
Yeah, it does. I wish, and I always tell him, I wish I lived closer because I think I'd be a real fun time getting into your improv group.
Well, yeah, and I remember last spring we talked about like going to karaoke, the three of us, like when all this is over.
When all this is over.
Yes, and it's gonna happen. It will happen. I have faith. My sister's pregnant again. That's been awesome. What else has been good? As much as I don't want to say it, the alone time, like you were saying, Marie, it's there's been a lot of inner growth.
Right. Yeah.
Accepting a lot of my demons because they just kind of float to the top when I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. There's only so many times I can clean the kitchen before I just want to burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just been a lot of reflection and
so me, I mean, obviously the podcast has probably been my number one, but for me, it's also, I've noticed that I've had big goals for myself every year. I mean, the year before the podcast was self-improvement. And the year before that, I started an LGBT group. And now I'm also trying to do my YouTube stuff. I'm trying to do, even TikTok I count in, and doing this Facebook thing where I'm going to do lives talking a lot more about my childhood and how I became empowered to be the person I am now. I've never really looked at myself as being a role model. I honestly think sometimes with me, I'm like, I don't think anyone should look at me as a role model because I'm garbage. I mean, that's how I felt. So it's like when I have all these people telling me that what I say is important and what I say, what my stories can actually help inspire other people, that really, I'm not gonna say it puts me on this level of like in the clouds, like, oh my God, I'm like super like important. I feel that, but I'm like, I never felt that before, so I don't know how to process it. So it turns into, I get into this point, like, oh my God, people love me. People think I matter. And so I'm like, how do I make sure that I stay on brand for this? Because that's it feels good when what I want to do by being on video, on having a YouTube channel and having people actually follow me. I'm like, that I've always wanted to be famous, but I'm like, it feels even better to know that if I'm going for that type of a venture, to be well known, be known for who I am, then I better be honest with who I am, and I better be able to be myself. And 2020 taught me nothing more than to be more myself than ever. If there's anything I could have taken away from 2020, was that is that my confidence level is overflowing a little bit. And so I am feeling like I'm able to get onto the mission I had before. And if I wouldn't have had all the time to reflect and grow and learn in 2020 with this opportunity for virtual stuff, I mean, I have ring lights now. I
Oh, you look
I,
so good over there.
I
I do.
keep having ads pop up for those on.
On TikTok. Yeah,
Yes.
they make you glow.
I
Yeah.
glow enough. Can't you see I'm glowing?
So I mean, and so I've been studying a lot more. I'm about done with my digital marketing certification from Google. I will be Google certified within probably the month. And now this year, my goals are to try and be more financially responsible. I just found out the other day that my bankruptcy is done. I'm officially bankrupt. Yeah. How do you
Congratulations.
like
Congratulations. Now you could start over.
exactly.
That's a
Exactly.
huge weight.
Now I don't have so much a clean slate because I still have like a car to deal with that I have to figure out how I'm gonna get catch up on. I still have some medical bills and there's a couple other things that are still kind of but for the most
But you're
part,
getting there.
those big things coming off my plate make me feel like I'm ready to take on 2021 and I'm going to make it my bitch.
That's so good.
Woo!
Like
That's
it's really fun.
awesome.
So the ultimate goal, and I just told my roommate about that this year's goal is I have been wanting to travel, and even though 2020 like has taught us we shouldn't be traveling as much now, my ultimate goal is that at the end of 2021, hopefully it's going to be safer for travel, but either way, I am on a plan of saving for a trip to New Orleans.
Cool.
Very
I
fun.
There's so many fantastic places I want to travel. But I had to pinpoint one, and a couple years ago, my bestie and I decided we wanted to go to New Orleans because one, it was relatively cheaper, but it's so rich in culture and history there.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that my roommate who's planning to look on, she said that there is a tour of the French Quarter done by drag queens.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like,
Oh my
first thing
goodness.
we should sign up for. Hello.
Right?
They talk about what it was like for gender inequality, like in New Orleans at that time, especially during in slavery times too. With where the yeah. So I'm like, I want to learn all that stuff. But my deepest thing that I want to learn is I want to learn the history of voodoo.
Ooh.
That's
A-
dangerous. Be
You know what?
careful.
Marie, do you know what Amy has said one time or a couple times? She's like, I think it would be irresponsible for anyone to teach you black magic, Ehryn.
Agreed. I agree.
I think what I think is so cool about what you just said though is, and it makes perfect sense, is that I've always thought this about you, that you are bigger than the place that you're in, like where you live. And so the fact that you have this medium virtually to reach out to way different people and just like, make your circle bigger makes perfect sense to me, because I do think, that where you live, like you're bigger than where you live,
I mean, I'm
and
not, yeah.
you have the capacity to reach so many more people than just around like your surroundings.
Well, and when people say that, and thank you, Marie, for summing that up very well, because that's how I want to come off. That's what I want to be able to do, because if there's anything that can come out of good of all the crap I've had to deal with in my life, then I can take on and make sure that I share all the amazing things that have come out of my life. And one of the most amazing things that has come out of my life is my ability to meet and get to know so many different types of people in my life. I mean, Lisa's one of those fantastic people that I first got to meet in my early adulthood, right after high school, when I was first meeting people who were outside of my small community in Reamer, Minnesota. All I had was the TV. And one thing that I had that growing up was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so, of course, when you meet someone else who's just as obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer as you know that you've instantly made your new best friend for life.
Yeah.
And Lisa and I were devout Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans,
I
all the
still
way
am.
till its final episode, when she was
Yeah.
texting me the whole time while I couldn't watch the season finale. But while she was watching it live, she was texting me every minute detail to what was going on. And I needed it. She knew she shouldn't be telling me that, but she knew I wasn't going to not want her to tell me this. So we did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Tell me, don't tell me. Show
that
me.
was at
No,
the
don't,
time when
don't.
text messages were still like, I think 15
Expensive.
cents a message.
You were worth every, no, well, yeah, it was probably not after 9. So yeah, we had to pay for texting.
But yeah, so Lisa and I met, and so with through her, I mean, I got to meet so many other people in Duluth, which led me to move to Duluth. And that if I wouldn't have moved to Duluth, I don't know if I would have been able to expand on who I was. But I didn't realize that I was building who I was. I thought that I was that somehow magically I would just become who I was going to be, who the person I was meant to be. I didn't realize that I was literally building that as I went, and I'm still figuring out, but I'm really excited to see the person that I am now from meeting people like Lisa, Drew, and so many other fantastic people that have come on to episodes and shared stories with me. And I want this podcast cast to continue doing stuff like that, sharing different stories, sharing different wellness things, journeys, meeting different people. And this medium, to be able to do it through Zoom, has made it such an easy way to do it. So I'm looking forward to a brand new season of To Be Fair, and see what we can do this season with new ways to go and new people. So we should definitely make sure that we have Marie on some more this year too.
Yes.
We got to keep the listeners updated on the baby. So
Yeah, I'm 21 weeks and like 6 days. So I'm like
yeah.
halfway.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my sister too. She's due in May.
Yeah, I am too. May 20th.
Yep.
Which my birthday is May 23rd. So my Tom was like, what if the baby's born on your birthday? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be strange. Like, but
Yeah.
good,
Right.
You work with what you get.
Yeah.
10 fingers and 10 toes. That's all we ask for.
Well, I'm just excited because she's not, and Marie's not the only member of our improv group that's going to have a baby. She's the one that we put on the pedestal, because Taryn is like, this is my third one. I don't care to be known. She's like going on to number 3. But it was funny. We were going to do a Christmas show together this year that we were both like, I was going to be in a scene with both the pregnant women, and we were going to be playing like Real Housewives.
Oh, fun.
North Pole. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to wrestle around with 2 pregnant women.
You will lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's exciting. And so hopefully we can do that show Christmas time next year to kind of like make fun of the pandemic of years gone by.
It's such a good show.
I
Like,
think we did. We came up with such an original concept that although Marie, remember that show, the show, the Goes Wrong show that we watched an episode
yes,
together?
yeah.
So they did a Christmas special this year, and their set was exactly how Mike's design was, a book, a story. Yes. I
Weird.
know Mike watched it. We both watched it, and he's like, I'm a little taken aback because now I don't want to do that next year. But I'm like, no, don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
But yeah. So yeah, we've got great opportunities. There's a lot of creative ventures coming up this year. I've got so much going on with my new YouTube channel, and we're actually a few of us. Don't worry, Marie, you'll hear more about this later too. But we're working on creating a new virtual TV show, and hopefully, I hope Marie is happy that we decided not to talk about self.
You're on the show.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
Hello.
It's my grizzly bear husband.
He generally looks a lot better than that. He just wasn't prepared to come on the-
A little ragged.
I like that he's just creeping. Like he just.
He's
Yep.
actually he's
That's
been on the
awesome.
show before, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah, but you should cut that.
I don't think I can.
He looks ragged.
We'll just make sure it's not. Well, let's not mention it anymore. Just take it out.
Right. Just
So
extract that frame.
so anyway, we tried one last thing. We tried to do, Marie and I were leaders of it when the quarantines first started. Besides this podcast, we tried doing a virtual work with the self-improvement group to keep us going. And it turned into, oh yeah, you remember, we talked about it. It turned into such a nightmare. I mean, it was, we have some amazing talent, but it was so chaotic to try and manage. And it just didn't go right. And I don't regret doing it. I just really wish we would have been a little more on it. And we've got a new virtual show coming up that's more scripted that I'm hoping will work out better. So I'm excited to talk with you about that, Marie. But for now, I think it's great time to wrap up the season premiere of To Be Fair, a podcast hosted by me, that's Ehryn Jordan Peterson. And I want to thank you so much, Marie, for joining tonight, even though your husband showed up accidentally, which we weren't going to mention again, but I thought it was funny and I'm not cutting it.
Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing.
He works from home. He's let his beard go, clearly. And today he didn't use his beard balm or take a shower.
Oh my God.
Oh, so it's just all fuzzy.
I don't know what I would do without my beard balm. Ugh, it makes it so soft.
Your beard looks so nice. I wish you could have your beard.
It's a lot of work to do.
Really?
It is.
It looks so nice.
It looks great. I wish I had a beard like that.
It's so well groomed.
It really is. Like you got really nice sharp lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be going forward with a whole new season of To Be Fair with lots more episodes with Lisa for sure. Marie, hopefully more, but Marie's schedule is a little harder to get her locked down on things, especially with my spontaneity.
That's fair.
But look for some great new things from us, and thanks again for joining, Marie and Lisa. As always, I'm so delighted that you are the co-host of this podcast.
Me too. I'm so happy to be able to do this. It's so much fun.
And I really hope that we get that a lot more people appreciate being able to now watch us as well.
I don't know about that. I got a face for radio.
We'll do some makeup tutorials too. It'll be really fun.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I could use a tutorial or two.
Oh, girl, so could I. All right. So other than that, you guys have a great day and we will talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.